Right, so my big thought today is from James 2:26. It's for as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. It's really obvious on the face of it, but it can be a complex situation when we're looking at works because we know we're not saved by our works. It's not our own goodness, the things we do that get us saved. It's the sacrifice, it's the faith that was placed in Jesus. But yet there is this connection between faith, how we live, and what we do. Now, has anyone ever seen the TV show, Four in a Bed, it's called? It's where they go around, they run some kind of B&B or hotel, things like that, and they go into a competition, and there's usually four of them, I think, and they spend a night in each person's hotel or B&B or establishment, and they rate it. And what I remember I was watching this one episode, there must have been nothing else on, I don't know, and it was just some easy watching, and there was this lady, and she was going to be going last. So she would see everyone else's establishment and rate them before it got to hers. And she was saying, as she was going through it, she was saying, I really value cleanliness. Okay, if it is not clean, I can't be doing with it. I really value cleanliness, okay? And she would go around everyone's room to such a degree. She'd be wiping her finger on the top of cupboards, on the top of wardrobes. Does anyone do that? You go to a hotel and you think, where's the cupboard? Where's the wardrobe? And you run your finger and think, and then she sees a speck of dust and she goes, oh no, this is not good. This is not good. She's looking for cobwebs. She's going as far as she can under the bed looking for cobwebs. So you're thinking, okay, wow, she really values cleanliness. You don't want to put something dirty around her because she's not interested in it. So can you imagine the rest of the group was starting to get a little bit annoyed by her, because they were thinking it's too much. You found one hair somewhere in the room and you've rated them like a 5 out of 10 or something like that. So it goes on, and everyone's thinking, well, I can't wait till we get to hers because it's obviously going to be spotless, won't it? Because she values cleanliness. She so values it. Her place will be spotless. It will be incredible. So they get to her place, and you know what they find? It's actually quite scruffy. It's quite scruffy, and everyone else, they can't believe it. They're like, what is she talking about? All week she's been holding us to such a high standard. And then it comes to her own and we're thinking, mine was better than that. Mine was cleaner than that. She's telling us, I really value cleanliness. And then it comes to her own place and it doesn't seem that she does. Do you see what I'm saying here? And we can see this. This happens with a lot of us, doesn't it? Psychologists say there is a difference between what we say we value and what we truly value. Because within the Christian walk, within the Christian life, as disciples, we will hopefully come to a place where we say, look, I value Jesus above all things. My journey in life, I want to grow in intimacy, in discipleship, in closeness to God. And that might be something we sometimes say. But then do our lives actually reflect that? What do you think? What values do we say that I live by? But actually, when it comes to it, when we really look at our lives, I don't know if I do value that. Yeah, because we've probably all got something like this lady. I mean, she had such a shock, when the scores came back. She could not believe it. Now, Isaiah 29:13, it illustrates this point. It says this: these people come near to me with their mouth and honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. Their worship of me is based on merely human rules they have been taught. So he's creating this idea, exploring this idea that you can be worshiping God, but only through your mouth, through what we say, through maybe some kind of action, but the heart behind that is missing. And I always find this topic fascinating because it is It's quite a difficult one to confront and to explain, because I've titled this message, it was the routine or the relationship, something like that. And the problem is, routines aren't necessarily bad. And you'll find places in the Bible where it says, you know what, if you're not feeling it in your heart, if you don't feel that love of God motivating you, then set up a routine. It says, if you don't feel it through love, then just set it up through obedience. So there are times when routines are really important. They're not necessarily bad, but if you can get to a place where the love of God is just in your heart, that makes it so much easier. You know, the difference between doing something because you think you should and doing something because you really want to, because you're passionate about it. Have you experienced the difference there? You know, maybe sometimes we have to do things in life. We just think it's the right thing to do. I should do it. And other times you just want to do it. And you can see the difference between when it's born out of, I just have a passion, a heart's desire to see this thing done. And actually the situation I'm in right now, I can only come at it through obedience. So the first thing, I guess, is we've got to try and keep the main thing, and at all times try and cultivate this heart relationship with God, because it can be so easy to just go through the motions. We can all do it. But when you, maybe if you're in a relationship, or when you get into a relationship, you have to be intentional, don't you? Some people are nodding. Some are thinking, you just roll with it. You see what happens. I've used this example many times before, but if you, in your relationship, just stop communicating with your partner, what is going to happen? You know, you just come home, no one be saying, oh, that'd be great, that'd just be lovely. You just come home, you just ignore your partner, you just don't say anything, what would happen? Well, over time, I can tell you, it would not do the relationship any good. You have to be intentional. You have to try. You have to put in that time. And it's the same thing with us and God. You know, we have to be committing ourselves to prayer. We have to be reading His Bible, His Word, because it brings life to our souls. But you might not always feel like doing those things. So the routine can be helpful, but you want to get to the place where you're doing it from love. And you can do it. You can do it. Sometimes you can be in a season where we think, well, my heart's just grown cold. You know, I don't know what more to do. I'm not feeling it. It's been some years since I've just felt that drive, that desire, that passion. It can be brought back. Those embers can be fanned into flames again. It really can. We go through seasons. We can all experience it. The book of Amos, his situation, he was having to talk to the Israelites, to the people, and they were in a good place. You know, their personal material wealth was pretty good, but they're experiencing a moral decline, a spiritual decline. And he is having to set some things right, saying, look, where are our priorities? Where are our focus? Because when everything is going right in our own lives, sometimes what happens, we think, well, maybe I don't need God. You know, if you've got everything lined up and you're thinking, well, I'm pretty independent at the moment, everything's going okay, sometimes it's not until we're in a bit of a situation where we think, I need some help here. Have you had that moment? Sometimes you come across a situation, you think, in my own strength, in my own wisdom, I don't know how to contend with this. Lord, I need your help. Holy Spirit, will you just come into this place, into this situation, and help me? And Amos was having to remind them, look, things might be okay for you right now, but don't let that detract from your spiritual growth, from our moral growth. He paints this picture that the people, they were just enjoying their religious festivals and things like that. You know, they enjoyed the best seats in the house, but just like with Isaiah, really, the heart behind it had grown cold. It had just grown cold. And we see this pattern again and again in the Bible. That it starts with a fire, with a flame, and people are passionate. People desire to experience God. We'd say, does anyone want to see a move from God? And they would say, yes, absolutely, amen. Time goes on, and the heart just grows a little bit colder, and routine sets in. For those that are doing quite well, routine sets in. For those that aren't, something else sets in entirely. And then a problem comes, usually to the Israelites, to his people. And it gives them that reminder, we need a savior. And it is in those moments, usually, when that flame is reignited. And we see this pattern again and again. So if God is saying this happens to a nation, to a group of people again and again, it can happen to us within our lifetime, can't it? Right now, we're not going to take a poll, but we're probably in different situations. Some of us right now, if we were to put our hands up and say, well, who right now just wants to see God move like nothing else? If we were being honest, some people would probably be like, yeah, that is my number one priority right now in my life. Others, if we're being honest, might think, do you know what? I'm not sure I really care right now. I know I should, but within my heart, I don't know if I do. And we can all be in different journeys, but as a church, we've got to travel together and pray together. Because when we're not feeling it ourselves, the community, it helps us and it picks us up. We can't all be on the top of the world all the time. We're going to feel weak at times. We're going to feel a little bit despondent, a little bit out of it. It's normal, it's natural. But let the love, let that fire that other people have got, catch something from it. And just really spend time in prayer. And sometimes you have to contend for this again. I've spoke to people in the past when they're in this situation, it's almost like an internal wilderness, and they say, well, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. I know what I should do, but I don't feel it. And you can say, okay, well, are you contending for God? Are you spending time in prayer? Are you reading the Bible? And do you know what they can say? Sometimes you get a no. And it's those basic building blocks. Again, if you're in a relationship, you communicate. You were intentional. We've got Jess and George, they're getting married soon. They're going to be experiencing what it is like when they're amazing, they're both amazing. But they will experience when two people come together and you become one unit. I know they're already going through that. But it does take some intentionality, doesn't it? Got a few nods. It does. It takes some intentionality. The second point really is to always be teachable. Jane was saying, about the clay last week, and such a prophetic image, because I remember at Bible college they'd be heavy on this, because they would say one of the most important things you can do is just remain teachable. You don't need to be the strongest, you don't need to be the best, but if you will just stay teachable, God can use you. He really can. Because a teachable spirit says, I don't know everything, I don't have it all down. Some things I won't understand, so God, if you say it's this way, I'm just going to go with it. Because I might not fully understand, I don't see the bigger picture, I don't see the lefts and the rights coming up, but you do. If you say, go right, I'm going to remain teachable, remain obedient, and I will follow your path. Because we're the clay, like Jane spoke on last week. We're the clay. We're living clay. And the thing is, he keeps molding us. And he keeps reshaping us. That's the difference when we're living clay. And at different points of our life, we might have a different purpose in different seasons. But God is always molding us. He's always shaping us. But sometimes we get to an age, I'm getting to the ripe old age of 33 now. I was doing a guest lecture at Chesterfield College this week, and I asked people to guess my age. What do you think people said? It's a dangerous game, this is right here. Very dangerous game. Well, first, I think I had one guy just taking the mickey because he said 19. And I was like, well, obviously not, but I'll kind of take it. And one person said 25. And when I said I'm 33, they actually gasped. I couldn't believe it. I thought they're being so kind. Or maybe they thought I looked a lot older. You never know, do you? But even reaching, I guess it's still kind of, your own routines, your own habits, they set in, don't they? And psychologists, they even say, look, not that we're trying to be rude. You know the saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, you can, but the science, the research shows it does just get harder. It gets harder. The older you get, it is harder to introduce new patterns, new routines to your mind. They lay this down in those neural pathways, and we've used this illustration before. You know, when imagine you've got a field, a clean field, untouched, no one's walked on it, and then you start walking a path every day in that field, the same path, up and down, up and down. What happens? A path will form. You will see it. It will form. It will come. And he says it works the same way with our brains, those neural pathways. When we react or respond in the same way, it is laying down. It is literally like laying down a neural network, a pathway for us to respond that same way again. So if it is a negative response, if we are responding to something with anxiety, with fear, that gets reinforced again and again. And it says it takes so much time and effort. The older you get, the harder it is to just remap those neural pathways. It's something that we try and work on, because when a situation comes, I want to respond as Scripture tells me to. I don't want my first reaction to be fear. I don't want it to be anxiety. I want it to be, but God's with me. I don't understand everything. I don't see the big picture, but if God says to go right, I'll go right, because I will remain teachable as living clay. Now, I think the last point is that God sees the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7 says this, "For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." Sometimes I think we can see this and feel a little bit of, oh no, God sees everything, which could be a bit startling, but also it should be comforting, because we can't put a mask on around God. We can't just pretend our way into a certain situation, because He knows entirely how we're feeling right now. If we could just put a projection up of what's going on in our hearts right now, imagine if we could do that. That'd be kind of scary, wouldn't it? We could just pick someone, or whatever's going on in our hearts right now just gets put up on the screen. God can see into our hearts. He knows exactly how we are, how we're feeling, what's going on. And the amazing thing is, for all our faults, for all our issues that are going on, what does He say? He still calls each of us. And He still has a plan for each of us. And He wants us involved in His life. But there is this bridge between what we say, the mask we put on, and what's going on in our heart. And really trying to create some alignment between what's going on in our heart and what we say, what we profess, is really important. When God was looking at David in the Old Testament, and there was coming a point where King Saul would be replaced by David. And David just started off as a lowly shepherd, didn't they? And that they had no prominence in their society, they weren't important or anything like that. But what we find is when we look at David, for all the ups and downs, when he was younger as a shepherd, he would look after those sheep with everything he had. So it was a tough job. It's not like we think now. He had to defend those sheep from lions, from bears, from predators yet at the flock. But what he did in private what he did in private when no one saw created a foundation for the victories later on. He didn't just take the easy road. See, if we were in that situation right now, maybe there was a difficult choice coming up. And no one would ever necessarily know. Which path would we take? See, David could have thought, I see these lions coming from my sheep, I'm not getting involved with that. They can have that one. We'll give them one. The rest of us, we're going to run. We'll sacrifice that one because it's a lion, okay? But he would give it his all. We don't know the full ins and outs of it, but he had integrity. He had integrity. And we see later on when he comes to face Goliath, it was not just some random event where he thought, let's just try David. God didn't just think, well, let's just give David a shot. It was built on the small, seemingly insignificant decisions that he did in the day-to-day that no one else might have even seen. Does that make sense? There's been times in my past where we're going through life and we think, well, what does this really matter? What does this situation really matter? If I pick this way or that way, but God sees the heart. And when David was in those positions, was in that situation, imagine that actually all of heaven was looking at this. All of heaven was watching the decisions that he was making. And God said that this boy will be the future king. These small decisions that no one else would see, they mattered in the grand scheme of things. So whatever we're going through right now, sometimes it can seem like it doesn't matter, like it's insignificant, but God says, I am with you, I'm watching you. And the decisions we make right now, they will build a future to come, because we don't always get the bigger picture. Would anyone love to just get the bigger picture right now if they could? If you could just say, Lord, just give me the 20, 30, 40, 50-year plan. Who would do that? Would anyone want that right now? I kind of like the bigger picture. I imagine it'd be scary too, but I like the bigger picture. I like to know what's happening. I like to know the plan. But we don't often get that. It says, what I need from you is to just follow me one step at a time. In the small things, in the big things, when it makes sense, when it doesn't make sense, just follow me in the day to day. No one else might see. No one else might give you credit. As humans, we can get things wrong. We can overlook things, and sometimes we can feel neglected and unseen, but God sees it all. Says, I see what you think others haven't seen, what other people have missed, what you've done for me, the sacrifice, the cost, I have seen. That is amazing. What other people didn't see, what you never got the credit for, he has seen. He says, and there is a day coming, everything will be rewarded. Like that shepherd boy in the field, all of heaven said, what they see, they just see a shepherd boy. What we see the king to come. So when we're in those weak moments and you just make that choice, I'm going to pray. I'm going to take this to God. All of heaven sees. When we make that sacrifice, whatever that looks like, the way we act, the way we use our resources, the way we interact with people, maybe it comes at a cost to us. What other people don't see, he sees. That he is always with us. For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. Actions are an overflow of what is living in our heart. It can take time to bring alignment to that because we're good at putting a mask on. But God sees. We don't need the mask around him. We're going to take communion in a moment, and we do this most weeks here because it just gives everyone a fresh opportunity every week to just come to the foot of the cross, where we can leave everything behind. Any baggage, any shame, any guilt, whatever's going on in our lives, we can just leave that at the foot of the cross and come into a fresh relationship, this covenant with Jesus.